welcome back to FinOps for Finance. We've got a very special guest today. Alexa's going to join us. I was going to attempt your surname, but I will only make an absolute mess of it.
All
So
good.
I came across Alexa on LinkedIn. She was kind of blogging about her career transition, going from being a teacher to breaking into FinOps, and it really kind of resonated with me in terms of what I've done moving from accounting across. And I suppose this channel is aimed at people who want to get into the industry, and that's exactly what Alexa's doing. So I thought no better person to have on than the woman herself to, if you would mind telling us a little bit about your background and what you're aiming to do, that'd be great.
Yeah, for sure. Well, first off, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be talking with you right now. This is so cool. Geez, so typically in my day-to-day life, I am a teacher. I've been a teacher for about 4 years now. That is my main background. I've also worked in operations for a climbing gym franchise. Have a tiny bit of customer success history in there, but mostly I am an English educator. And I've decided to have like a career transition for, gosh, I made that decision maybe about like 3 years ago, and it was very rocky. Just didn't know what to do. Tried multiple different paths. Things just weren't working. It wasn't until like earlier in 2025 that I came across FinOps through um, just a couple of connections that I had. Actually, one of my friends from high school. So
Oh,
love how networking works. It's
yes.
amazing.
Yeah.
So someone from high school connected me with another former teacher who is now in customer success, and it just it it was like a click. I guess it just clicked very quickly with me. I really got into FinOps because of the community that lies within it. Um, and the more research, the more I dug into it, I just so happened to really find the information intriguing. I think FinOps is just a great solution that anyone can benefit from, whether you're a tech company or not. So it just, yeah, it kind of fell into place, and yeah, and that's how I got here now, and that's how I'm talking with you.
Yeah. And I suppose it's kind of one of those things you have to kind of almost kiss a few frogs before you find where you wanna go. And it's because I think I was kind of similar. Accounting is fine, but it's thankless and oh, it's a good pensionable job or whatever. But it's kind of missing that something. Luckily, you've realized a lot younger than I was when I figured it out, and you're kind of actively doing something about it. And then in terms of trying to break into it and learn more about it, what kind of steps did you take, like from having that initial introduction to someone that had moved across? How did you, I suppose, start your learning and digging in a little bit there?
Oh geez, yeah, it was, well, honestly, as an English educator, my background is not there's not much there, so I was really starting off with not much information. So it was a very steep learning curve. So I knew it was going to take some time. I knew I was going to have to dedicate months of learning. And at first, I was very reluctant for that because, of course, with a career transition, I was like, "All right, guys, come on, it's been a while now. I'm ready. I'm ready." But the more I got to understand FinOps, like as a framework, but also just like the FinOps community, I began to like really accept that I'm like, okay, it's going to take some time for me to learn, but I'm okay with that because people are rooting for me. So that just felt really sweet. So a couple of first things that I did was one, I wanted to figure out how to leverage my LinkedIn. That felt pretty pivotal in terms of career transition, and I was never really active on LinkedIn in the education world. Job searching and all the networking looks a little different, so I wasn't really used to LinkedIn at all. So when I started being a little more active on LinkedIn, I had to ask myself, what skills do I have right now that I can leverage in order to start getting conversations going? And I love writing, always loved writing. I started to really fall in love with writing when I was in high school. And throughout my life, I had like spurts of having different kind of blogs. I'm writing different kinds of things, whether it's poetry or nonfiction. So I was like, okay, I'm going to really try and take my writing skills and just blog about what I'm learning and kind of take people with me on this journey. At first, it felt like I was just kind of yelling to avoid because it was just, there was nothing going on.
Yeah.
I was just like, I was like, you know what? And I really had to like bear through it because I was like, oh, this feels so weird because I'm just, I felt like I'm talking to nothing. And that was really what it was at first. I think I had maybe like 20 connections on LinkedIn. And I continuously talked about just what I'm learning in terms of just like the technical aspects of FinOps, and also like the theoretical and philosophical side of FinOps and how companies really adopt it and what that means for us, like not only like psychologically but like sociologically too.
Yes.
Yeah, and I just it's been really fun kind of getting down to the nitty gritty and analyzing that like on my own. Um and as I continued my studies, which I really used when I actually started studying the content, I really used AWS Skill Builder at first because I wanted to understand just like cloud computing. What did that look like? What is that? What is like, at AWS? Why is everyone on the cloud? What does this mean? I used that as a resource as well as the FinOps Foundation. Um, Amazing resource in terms of just like the learning and the modules. It was informative. As someone again with like little background, it was easy for me to understand, so it was accessible. And that kind of snowballed into me being able to get my um, FinOps practitioner certification. And then that's when I really started to pivot and dive more into like learning more about AWS and just cloud computing in general. So I can get my cloud practitioner certification. And that was kind of happening behind the scenes as I was blogging on LinkedIn. And um, as I continued doing that, the more people came into my sphere and like the more conversations I was having, it was, I honestly still can't believe it. I think from earlier in 2025, I went from maybe having like 20 to 30 connections and now I have over 800. And it was just from talking about what I'm doing. And people have been so helpful. So that's been like probably the bulk of what's been going on.
I love that the feeling of kind of screaming into the void. It's probably before your time now, but Field of Dreams, the build it and they will come kind of thing. Like because the amount of because I do a little bit of posting on LinkedIn as well, and there might be 4 or 5 likes and impressions are low, and you're not necessarily doing it for the validation piece, but at the same time, it's nice to get some bit of to hear something back. But the amount of
Yes.
people
Yeah.
then that you'd meet at events and they're like, "Oh, I saw what you mentioned about this," and it's mainly I don't know about your friends are probably a lot more supportive than mine, but it'd be the lads slagging me, being like, "Don't like this makes absolutely no sense. Like, have you just where's this? What is this word soup that you're talking about?" Um, so it's just being able to I suppose everyone's so focused on their own stuff. If you can just do you and like say your writing really stands out. Even before we got chatting before, you could tell in your writing that this is something that's kind of in you, and it makes it quite quite an enjoyable read. As enjoyable as reading about learning FinOps is, it's kind of nice to see the way you're building the blocks of your knowledge, and also I love the way you mentioned about the social impact and like you talk about like was it Netflix or one of these and the streaming platforms and how it how relating it to real life helps with your learning and it's kind of that flywheel effect.
Yes.
One other point I wanted to pick that you made was about the FinOps Foundation when you got it, the fact that you realized early on that you're not going to know it all in the first day, and it's very hard. Like, say, I want to make a career pivot, so I want that career today. To realize that it's going to take time, and to follow the FinOps maturity framework of like crawl, walk, run. It's kind of like that. You have to build your network build your knowledge over time. I really like that approach that you're taking.
Yeah, thanks.
Um, and then, so you've started doing the skill builder and getting I suppose, the hard skills in terms of learning the cloud. And I suppose your network is growing, and your understanding of the industry is growing. In terms of someone new who's kind of starting out, and they're like, okay, uh, and I suppose it's always a challenge because you're comparing your day one to someone else's day 100 or whatever it is, or day 500. What's the advice that you give someone who's looking to make that transition and start on that journey?
Ooh, okay. So a couple of things. One is definitely networking. Like that has just been, I think, not only helpful, but it's just been a cool experience. Like meeting people all over the world has been such a, and like through my computer has been such a wild and weird, but also really fun experience and just getting to know people. I mean, I think that's the one thing I love about the FinOps community. It's like people are making an effort to help me, but we're also getting to know each other in the process, like as people. And I think that speaks to the spirit of the framework as well. And another thing is being consistent. I didn't, when I started taking this transition seriously, because at first it was not that I wasn't taking it seriously. I just was like, I'm not sure if this was going to work because it hasn't worked for me in the past when I've tried other things. So I was very skeptical, but the more traction I was gaining and like just like interactions that I was having through LinkedIn, the more I was like, you know what? Yes, this is it. This is what I want to do. So I had to start being consistent with my routine, especially when it came to learning and studying new information. I woke up at 5 a.m. every day for like a couple months just to get my studies in. I needed that consistency because I knew if I just went to my day job and came back, I was not going to
Yeah.
study and I wouldn't absorb the information. Um, I think, oh my gosh, I forget there was another podcast that was it. I think it was, gosh, it was I think it's called Cloud Career Mentor. That was also very helpful in terms of just like understanding certain study habits, what other people did in order to really like enhance their career profile and just and their skills in general. Um, and that was a very helpful tool because that's what got me to start waking up at 5 a.m. And it was one of those things where I heard on a podcast, it was something along the lines of like, wait, like if this is something that's important to you and it's a priority, it's something you'll create time for and wake up like early for. And just as you would going to the gym, like that's something that's also very important to me is like it's like having that moment of fitness and being able to do whatever it is that kind of gives me that release. Like that's something I prioritize. And I had to kind of look at my studies in that same way. It was like in order to like grow in any way, like I have to make this a priority. And that's when I started seeing a lot more growth in just my overall knowledge and understanding. And then that's where I saw my LinkedIn post started getting a little more like specific and a little more complex. And I was like, okay, I am learning. I was like, this is great. And people were engaging in conversation with me. So um, definitely that consistency piece and networking, I think it truly has like it changed my life and my perspective um, on just the working world in general.
And I love that about the consistency, because there's that phrase, that what is it, that you always underestimate how much you can do in a day, or no, overestimate how much you can do in a day, and underestimate how much you can do over a prolonged period of time. And when you build it in as part of your habit, like say the gym is a perfect example. If you go for a run every morning at a certain time, this stuff is on. You've got the running shoes on before you've even thought about it. Just like that, sitting at the desk to learn the thing. If you're thinking about it all day, or if you're doing it at the end of the day when your energy's low, it's the first thing to go. But by prioritizing that, and No, that's really really powerful, and the networking thing, like say, is massive, and it just builds, and like that compounding effect of good habits, consistency, just building on each other, getting more traction, and that feedback loop. It's really powerful. Love it.
Yeah, thanks.
Good. So your journey is you're on the road. You're kind of edging towards the the industry. How do people get in touch to, I suppose, follow your journey and see your progress? What's the best place that they can catch you?
So, definitely my LinkedIn. That's like where I'm going to be the most active. I cannot wait for FinOps X because I'm coming prepared with business cards and
It's impressive.
hopefully you get one, but I will but there's a reason for it. On the back there's a QR code and I probably won't like drop the link to this website until I'm at FinOpsX, but the QR code leads to a web page, and it's not necessarily a resume, but it's something like it. It's a web page just really explaining everything I am, just in a page. But as an English teacher, I had to get a little creative with it. Um, and it's a whole metaphor. So I call it Alexa's virtual private cloud. And this whole page is my VPC. And each section is, for example, the subnet section is my skill zone. So my private subnet is maybe my more technical skills you wouldn't see on like just by like looking or talking with me. And then my public subnet or is really all my like display skills that you would see just based off of talking to me and learning who I am. So that's something I guess just keep an eye out for. It's I wanted to see how I can really stand out in this conference, and hopefully that's something that people will enjoy, and just also like making a metaphor of network. It's just like it's just it's fun to me.
And it really kind of it's meeting people where they are as well. Like it's speaking their language, but putting like because people get a ton of CVs and a ton of like what's there to separate you? What's that extra bit of effort, that extra bit of thought? Because that's what makes a good employee, whether it's customer success, consulting, in-house FinOps. It's all dealing with people, dealing with them in different ways. But at the end of the day, as you mentioned, the community is about the people connecting. The actual job itself is about stakeholder management. So if you can talk and interact with people, which is a skill that's becoming less and less prevalent as time goes on. I know I see the kids and they'd be like, oh, we want to go on, whatever it is, like talk to each other or like go out and look at, like interact with people face to face. It's becoming such a commodity now. Having that strong piece and approaching it from a different angle, that'll serve you in really good stead.
Yeah, and now that you say that, there was something else that I just wanted to add because when I when I started learning more about FinOps and digging more into the community, um, I'm seeing that like cross functional collaboration, cross team collaboration is like really at the pinnacle of this framework. And something as an English teacher that I have always done was just is learning how to make complex information easier for others to understand. And that really has been the angle that I've been trying to take FinOps with is like, how can I display what I'm learning, but also communicate it in a way that's digestible for all audiences that are not just within the FinOps community, but people that I'm connected with on LinkedIn that may not know anything about FinOps. Because that was me like months ago, just not knowing a thing. And the language is hard. And then it's like when you bring in different departments where finance and engineering are using different like sorts of language and vocabulary to explain similar things, then it gets even more complex. So it really is, it's fascinating to me that it seems like that FinOps, just like as a framework and cultural mindset, is also trying to adopt this shared language. And that's something I really tried to go for on my LinkedIn because I want it to be accessible. It's FinOps seems like the answer for a lot of problems that we're seeing in organizations, and just structures in general. And yeah, and it's like in order for people to adopt it, it's like they got to understand it fully. So we might as well have a language that people can people can understand it.
Yeah, and I suppose that ties in with the focus specification where they're trying to, like, even getting the three main cloud providers to call the same thing is like even something as basic as like billing date format or something like that, that you'd imagine a date is a date, but it's not.
Yeah,
Like that consistency, and I suppose if you can explain and engage a classroom of kids to want to learn English, sure, speaking to grown-ups about cloud service or engineers about their cloud bill, sure that'll be piece of cake dealing with adults. But it's again, it's always thinking about, because people might necessarily have an English background, they might have a background in something entirely different, but what are the skills that you can take across and kind of almost leverage them and have them as your, what do they call it, your central tent pole, and then build the knowledge and everything else around that is really, really good place to start.
you're right, right. Yeah, it's so crazy how global FinOps is. Like, I'm still like wowed by it every day. Like talking to people, like whether it's in London or in Israel or somewhere across the U.S. Like it's still like it's like really it's fascinating to me. And through this whole experience, especially as someone, maybe as someone else who's like looking to get into the field, it's like there's so much you can do. Like there's so many things, and even whether it's like FinOps or something else, like I don't know what it's been, but like through this process, I've on it's changed the way I like thought about myself. I like I had to that like you know what the first step of all was like I needed to change the way that I thought about myself in order to be successful in whatever it is I wanted to do. I had to like really rearrange the way that I thought about who I am and like my capability. Like I was like, oh man, I had to wake up some days and really tell myself that I could do it. And I had to wake up and tell myself that I'm already doing it, like that I am it. I am the top customer success manager. I'm the top content marketer performing. Like I had to tell myself these things, and it slowly turned into something where I was like, oh my gosh, like I actually can do these things, and that kind of came first before really getting into the nitty gritty of like the studies and stuff like that. I didn't mention that before, but that is a really important piece. I think as humans, we get really quick to think that we can't do things, and through this process, I'm like we can do a lot, and I can do a lot. So I was like, this is crazy. So that's been like probably one of like the biggest pieces of all because with that and that belief in myself, everything else is able to fall into place.
And you make a really good point about the mindset shift, and that's one thing, and maybe that's part of the secret sauce within the community because the cloud is relatively new, FinOps is relatively new, it's changing all the time. AI is an example, coming along and just rewriting the whole game. You need to be at that growth mindset to be willing to learn and to be willing to accept that you don't know it all. No one really is a, people might have their niches, but no one really knows it all. Everyone's learning, and just being open to that consistent learning and growth, that alone will, like when you're open to learn, that'll carry you very far on its own. Oh, really, really good, Alexa. Really, really interesting conversation. I'd definitely love to have you on in a future episode in a couple of months' time, just so we kind of track the progress and see the
Yes,
journey.
yes, yeah.
But for now, yeah, I'll put a link to your LinkedIn, and that sort of, and the AWS skill builder that you mentioned sounds very interesting. So those couple of resources, I'll put links in the notes below. And no,
Oh
that's great.
yeah. There's definitely one. There's another. I can tell you. I can message you like whatever source it is. But if there was another thing that I use that I'm just thinking in my brain right now, and it was a bunch of practice tests that are like really important.
Ooh, excellent,
Yeah,
excellent.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
exactly it.
Super
And
helpful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
the podcast you mentioned as well. We need to get that link. I'll put that in because, yeah, anything that because different as we mentioned throughout, like different things will resonate with different people, and it's just
right.
finding that one thing where you're like, yeah, that's the thing,
Yes,
and you
yeah,
can
yeah,
kind
yeah.
of hang on with that and go from.
Yeah, definitely. Man, I wish I mentioned that sooner, but yeah, I don't know if it's called Udemy or Udemy, but
Oh
it's
yeah,
it has a great course for the cloud practitioner, and it has pretty hard practice exams. It almost over prepares you. So it's like that's another great resource. So yeah, I'll send that your way as well.
brilliant. That's great. Thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it.